Biz 505. This is week 1, module 1, and what we're going to be doing is covering retirement planning for the next 8 weeks. And I might just summarize what we'll be doing. First of all, we'll look at our client. What do they think is retirement? Where do they stand towards being retired? What are they going to do after they retire? How are they going to finance the retirement? Next, we're going to look at potential use of, well, I guess the best way of saying retirement plans, they actually are pension plans, retirement plans, IRAs, etc. But let's just call it retirement plans to make it simple at this stage. We'll see the differences in starting in week 3. And then we're going to look at benefits. What benefits are available for employees? So this can apply to not only the employee who is working for a company, but it can also apply for people thinking about which jobs to take. It can also apply for small businesses. The market for this type of activity, retirement planning, is quite large. We have different meanings for everybody as far as what is retirement, and I've just listed some here that we've had in classes before. Sometimes people will say it's when you turn 65 or when you no longer have a full-time job. I think that is more the European terminology, because in Europe, when you reach a certain age, you are no longer allowed to work. Here in this country, we have people who actually start businesses when they, quote, retire from a work job. We have people who take a second career. So there's a lot of things we can do at retirement. This list is just some of them. I think the best way of putting it in America, retirement is probably a state of mind. For me, it was not working on Fridays with a 3-hour drive home at night. And even years after retiring from working for companies, I still don't like working on Friday afternoons. And that's my retirement. Anything I don't have to do on Friday afternoons means I'm retired. If I have to work Friday afternoons, it means I'm not retired. But you might look at some of these. You take a look for a minute, and I'll let you take a look at it. There's nothing unique about them. I think, as I said before, this is probably very representative of the United States. I think the one that probably is more effective the last 4 years or 5 years than we had before is that there's no jobs out there. Planning during working life. Few Americans actually plan for retirement. What they'll do after retirement becomes an issue. How retirement will be funded is the second issue. Most Americans have absolutely no idea as to methods of determining what amount of funds is needed at retirement and when they need to save. I've had people who came to my office, 55, 58 years old, who said, I want to retire at 65 at the same standard of living I've had before. Turns out they had not saved anything. People just don't understand in our society what it takes to develop funds needed for retirement. And I guess another way of putting it, time value money has a phantom as far as they're concerned. Most Americans today have less than 100,000 retirement savings. Now I realize people have big savings at their employer, but when they leave to go to another job, typically what they do is take the money out of that fund and put it in something like paying off the car, paying off college loans, etc. Causes for retirement. Voluntary is one believes he or she has enough savings to cover expenditures. That's certainly nice. The question is, do they really have that ability? And that's where a financial planner comes in. Mandatory due to laws or corporate rules. For example, airline pilots have a retirement age. Police department officers have a specific retirement age. Another is illness, which a lot of people don't realize is a cause for many people having to retire, be it due to cancer, heart attacks, strokes, etc. Need to care for an ill family member. Your skills are out of date, which is becoming more and more prevalent today as skills change so fast these days. No available jobs, which again is something we've certainly seen in the last few years. And finally, burnout. Source of income when you're no longer having a full-time job and you're in this, whatever state you define as retirement. Well, first of all, there's Social Security, which we'll be discussing in week 2. employment retirement plans, IRAs and other investments, annuities, sale of your business, insurance cash value, sale of assets or use of a reverse mortgage, inheritances, moving to a low cost area to save money, children or grandchildren, which is very difficult for many people, but they do in many cases have to rely on them, and part-time jobs. So again, this is based on really you're not working full-time, or you've gotten a second job and you need additional assistance. Retirement needs vary by interest, age groups, and health. Generally, we spend more on healthcare, travel during our retirement career than we did during our working career. Generally, we spend less on savings, clothing related to working than we did in our working career, except again, if you start a second business, which again, many people are doing these days. Many also need to supplement retirement income with paying jobs. What do we forget when planning for retirement? Well, in the 30s, few people live past 70, where today you can expect to live to your 80s or 90s or even longer. The IRS tables now go up to 108. And we forget that health tends to diminish the people after 60. Inflation reduces the value of future income. And finally, time is a major factor in savings due to compound interest. When we're trying to forecast our needs, we can use the bottom-up establishment of a budget for retirement. This is good when you're near the retirement age, because basically what you do is you look at what you forecasted needs are during retirement. How much is that going to be? And you project that in the future to the years of retirement. When you don't know what's going to be required in retirement, which is typically anybody really more than 5 years from retirement, we use the tops-down forecast based on a percentage of today's living standard. So it might be 80% of today's value, 70%, whatever is best based on what you know of the client, and you plan retirement in the distant future by making calculations off of that. And we'll see more of that in Module 2 when we do the calculations. Stages of retirement, when retirees do and what funds they need depend on the stage of the retirement. We'll see more of this in a different viewpoint from Harry on Module 3, but for at this stage there's people who are retired who are mentally and physically healthy. There's also those who are restricted activities due to minor medical issues, such as they have a bad back, they may be confined to a wheelchair, they may have lost their hearing or have very limited sight, may be not able to walk more than a few paces at a time. Then we get the very restricted lifestyle due to major medical or mental issues, where basically they are bedridden or sit in a chair all day. So those are kind of the stages we see in later years of life. Major concerns of retirees. I think most retirees are worried about outliving savings, and that's where use of a private or public annuity is very helpful, because it'll guarantee them. Doesn't mean they will feel more comfortable, they should be more comfortable. Lack of fulfillment in retirement and not really accomplishing much. Health status, which is an issue for many people. Will Social Security be available until death? And finally, does Medicare cover all my needs, which again Obamacare is trying to solve. Methods used to reduce standards of living while income is insufficient. First of all, we can move to a smaller residence. We can move to areas with lower cost of living. For example, moving from a west coast or east coast to the Great Plains or the south. Substantial reduction in cost of living, substantial reduction in cost of housing. Change our retirement goals. Part-time jobs while still physically and mentally able, if there are jobs available. We can sell assets, and such as our house. We have a very expensive car, jewelry, stocks, etc. We have reverse mortgages that some people use, and finally we have, for those who are destitute, SSI and Medicaid. And at the bottom I say, we highly recommend that residential mortgages be paid off before retirement. I find that this is probably the easiest way to retire and not worry about the sources of income you have, because quite honestly it's going to be a fixed value every month. Where if you rent or have an adjustable mortgage, you got the problem of increase in the expenses per month for the housing. Factors must consider when developing a retirement plan. The client who wants to retire has a number of factors which must be covered in the plan, and I've listed them here. They are taken from different sources. So one is remaining work life, total work life, retirement life, basic saving concepts, etc. And you can look at it on your own, but because these are just what I call a checklist to see that I'm covering the items that are necessary when the client sits down with me to talk about retirement. And a major factor is going to be how many years they have left in retirement, how much they've saved to date, as well as the other points here. Key terms used in the course: defined contribution plans. Employer makes payments to retirement savings, but it's up to the employee to worry about whether or not they have enough money for retirement. The big advantage of this method is that the plans can be moved from one source to another, typically through a IRA, and therefore the employee does control the amount of assets and can take it with them, and also controls what the investments are going to be made. Defined benefits plans where the employer provides pension. Typically you don't really get anything unless you stay till retirement age. Qualified plans, tax advantage by deferring taxes, and that's the big advantage of having a qualified plan, both for the employee who has tax advantage by deferring taxes, and the employer who can take advantage of tax deduction today when they make payments, rather than waiting until the employee retires. Non-qualified plans, saving plans that are not qualified, they can be tax advantage by deferring taxes and can be an employer or employee sponsored. Vested means you have ownership rights. Funded means financials are set aside for the obligation. And finally, another term we'll use in this course is discriminatory. Not everyone is included in the benefits. It's probably surprised a lot of people. Most people feel if you have a retirement plan at work, everybody benefits, but that is not true, as we'll find in starting in week 3. With that, we've completed the first module. I would suggest that what you do is make sure you understand this module. If you don't understand it, I suggest you go back and review it.